What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy, Neosynthesis, coming back at you with a little bit of a variation on what I normally do. I'm doing a Handtrap tier list today. I know you guys can't really see anything in the old tiers yet, but I'll start filling stuff in really quickly here. If I can just find Shifter, we'll start off with Shifter tier. Shifter is kind of in its own tier, and I'll talk about it first because it doesn't really follow the rules of the rest of the hand traps. Hand traps are kind of, here or there good. They maybe blow out in certain situations and terrible in other situations. Shifter is like one of the most broken cards in the game, or like just like a terrible card. And I guess there's other cards in this list that fall in the situation, but Shifter I feel like is one of the most prevalent ones in the format right now. And I'm going to go through and go ahead and put stuff in question mark tier that I just don't think is very good. No material, contact C. I don't think you should play those cards. Retaliating C. Another card I do not think that's worth your time. I don't really think, Phantasme. This is Phantasme, right? Maybe this is the other one. I don't know. There's been a couple. This might be the dragon that lets you special summon it if it's linked. Either way, it's just not really that relevant. This format. One of these is the trap, and one of these is the spell. I feel like the trap one is more. The trap one is more viable. So just give me a second. I'll come back to those. But Gamma is like a really good one, and not just because I'm talking about the sci frames, I figure I might as well put Gamma. I feel like Gamma would be in the S tier if it weren't for the requirements that you can't have a card in your hand, and obviously you have to play Driver. That is like a major downside, just a big bummer, honestly. Anyway, moving on, I'll just kind of do it like this. I think DD Crow is also an A tier hand trap, just because it's so versatile. Like in this format, it's not as versatile as it used to be, but it's so good against tier that it's, I think, worth playing. And you can still pretty much DD Crow like an elf target, which is it's impactful enough. I think Token Collector's like a side tier card. I was gonna say it's like almost irrelevant, but I wouldn't quite do it that dirty. Ghost Bell I think is like a C tier hand trap. There's like a few applications for it, but it's not really a card that is gonna be impactful enough most of the time on average, because a lot of the stuff you want a Ghost Bell is better dealt with like maybe a DD Crow, or it's just gonna be not worth it in the end because you'll just be kind of hand looping yourself, if you've ever heard that expression before. But I digress. Ash Blossom. Ash is okay. It's not, it's kind of falls under the same like ills as Ghost Bell, where it's just like not impactful enough on average. So I think Ash is like a B tier. This format, it's like okay to still have in your deck, obviously, but it's not the best hand trap in the format. Not even close. Artifact Lancia, I think, is kind of a bummy hand trap, like a side, maybe against Flu potentially. Chaos Hunter, I don't think Chaos Hunter is really worth playing. This card is actually kind of crazy. Ghost Reaper. I would put Ghost Reaper maybe higher than a lot of people would, because you can Ghost Reaper Kit Kalos, and that's really impactful, and like Ghost Reapering Elf from Sprite is really, really deadly. Not that Sprite is too big of a contender in this format. So, like I said, I think it might be a little bit too niche. And main decking this would be a bit hard. So, but because it's like so, it's I think this is another one of those. This kind of falls into like shifter tier where it's like so broken, or like you play against that one Floowandereeze player and it's like so useless. Dogwood is really really good. I've seen Dogwood in a lot of deck profiles at top, and not even always just winning in time with this card. Obviously, this card is good for time. I'm going to put it in the B tier, but because I think that it a lot of the time functionally serves as a threatening roar to give you space to draw a card and then be able to play out your next turn. So, I think that it is pretty useful. Hold on, I've been trying to figure out what Epsilon does this whole time. I think Epsilon is the trap negate. Epsilon. Okay, so Epsilon's the trap negate, and I think that this card's potentially worth siding to stop someone that you know for a fact is eradicating you, and you're on a deck that like loses to it. The spell negate one is awful. Please do not play that. Moonlight Chill I think is like a B tier card because I think that it's pretty good. Stopping one effect is generally pretty good, and it like targets as well. And the burn damage is not to be scoffed at. You can oftentimes win games with the new time rules just because you are able to put this on a card that your opponent has to use to continue their standard combo. I think Ghost Ogre's in a really terrible spot this format because there's like nothing you want to Ghost Ogre versus Tier, and Sprite is really like it's become pretty weak, and a lot of the good Sprite players will always protect their Gigantic somehow. So this card just has lost a lot of its luster. Skullmeister. I think Skullmeister is pretty good. It's about in the same like little niche as Ghost Spell. It doesn't stop enough most of the time, but when it does stop, it's it's decent enough. It can get the job done. But like I said, it's one of those things where it's like hand looping you, and it's not actually like taking away resources from your opponent or getting you like a guy on board or like stopping the combo from happening at all. Like the pieces are already in motion most of the time, and Skullmeister, throwing it onto a chain of cards of tier cards. It's like they've chained 3 cards together because they're turn player and you're Skullmeistering. You're generally going to be getting bad results there. Droll and Lockbird's in a weird place this format. I'm gonna put Droll and Lockbird. I'm gonna put Droll and Lockbird kind of in the shifter tier as well, because it's like this is just like a floodgate card. Like these 3 cards are basically like, if my criteria are met to be broken in this game, and Droll and Lockbird if they're searching a lot, Cherries if they need one extra card in particular, or Shifter if they need the graveyard, they're just like floodgates, and they just mean you absolutely win the game. So that's why they're kind of in that gray tier where it's not really like, value. You know what I mean? It's like these guys are kind of they're hyper meta calls, and I think the Shifter's a really good one. So that's why it's shifter tier, because Shifter's the king of these cards right now. But I think that this is pretty much their home. As for the final 3 hand traps, I think Nibiru is an A tier card. This card's like a blowout. If your opponent doesn't put up a negate, which tier often has a hard time doing, and they play into it, you can sneak games with this card. It's just really, really, really good. And then it's good versus Rogue as well. There's applications where it's not good, like against the random Floowandereeze player or like a stun player or your locals, which is why it's not an S tier. But I think that it's worth an inclusion in your side deck at least. Effect Veiler, as I think, a really, really strong hand trap this format, just because oftentimes just stopping like the start of their Wombo combo can be enough to let you play. One like negation on like that, because you can negate basically like the first thing they do most of the time, and it's a targeted negation, so they can't chain block you so easily. Is really, really strong. Like being able to stop their Kikalo, that can pretty much like I'm just specifically against tier, and then like obviously Sprite, if they're not able to protect their gigantic, you negating that is huge. Even if they can, like protect their gigantic, you can always effect Veiler. Like you can effect Veiler their like blue or like anything like that. So it just depends on like what kind of a Sprite player you're playing against. Like whether he's like the kind of player that will always get the protection first, or whether or not you think you can get one over on him. But 90% of your average player he'll get caught. A lot of players will get caught with that effect Veiler on the gigantic Sprite. Because they generally just will, like, a lot of people will think, I can protect my gigantic Sprite here if I just grab out a carrot, because they're playing around, spoilers, best hand trap of the format, Infinite Impermanence. So you can get one over on them with effect Veiler on certain players like that. It's hard to make your elf first and then go into gigantic, because you just don't have as much wombo combo ability as you had before. But anyway, this is the Handtrap tier list that I'm gonna go with. It's October 11th, 2022, and I think this is pretty decent, pretty comprehensive. Let me know if you guys disagree with me in the comments. I'm sure you will. Anyway, it's been your boy Neosynthesis. Peace.